Hello to my air rising signs, Leo, Aquarius, and Gemini. Welcome to the Capricorn full moon. You'll find the timestamps of your rising signs listed below. Hello Libra Rising, welcome to your reading for the Capricorn full moon happening very soon on July the 21st at 8:19 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. Hi, how are you? I'm so sorry it's been a month. It's been so long since last we spoke. I got very sick. At the last full moon, I became just overwhelmed by a fever, and it was all I could do is to sort of just go through the rhythms of the day and to heal as best that I could. I dropped my phone on the train and it was a disaster. I had a lot of paranoias around, the end of my livelihood and my inabilities to keep up. That was all kind of showing up quite strongly for me. And then it sort of began a journey. It began a journey into the underworld for me. And this time I galvanized myself and I armored myself and I protected myself with the mythology of the underworld. Now, looking at this astrology, Libra Rising, we might go there if that's okay with you. If it's not interesting for you at this time, I completely respect that, and I'll see you soon. But this journey to the underworld internally that I was going through, I feel the emanation, I feel the connection to the cultural journey to the underworld that we might be existing through right now as well. Capricorn has a lot to do with it. The asteroid Ceres has a lot to do with it. The asteroid Proserpina has so much to do with it too. And of course, Pluto. So I'm going to tell you a story. We know, and from what I've shared with you, that Ceres was the goddess of agriculture. She was the great mother. She was the nurturer of the pantheon, and she taught humankind how to grow crops and how to harvest and how to take from the natural resources in order to feed and to nourish oneself. She had a daughter, and in the Roman, we're going to call her Proserpina. The Greeks said Persephone, so you might remember or might recall some stories that you've heard before. But Proserpina was beautiful like the springtime, and she worked with her mother here and there and everywhere. Pluto, the lord of the underworld, was enraptured and obsessed with the beauty of Proserpina, and then in traditional classical antique style kidnapped her and dragged her to the underworld to be his bride. There was a bargain struck with Jupiter at that time, who was the king of the gods and goddesses. And Jupiter said, yes, sure, you can have her, that's fine. Ceres, Jupiter's sister, was furious that this had happened. No one had consulted her. She was enraged. And she went on a quest to find her daughter and to bring her back to what she considered to be her natural environment. And so Ceres, in that quest, did not eat. The crops grew cold. The structures of the harvest all fell into disarray. In one of the versions of the great myth, this is where winter comes from, when everything frosts over because of Ceres and her rage. There's more to the story. Proserpina in the underworld was captive, but then Proserpina in the underworld reconciled her darkness. And she found great power in the darkness too. The bargain was struck with Ceres and with Pluto and with Proserpina. After eating the pomegranate seeds of the underworld, food of the underworld, which bound her in some way to this commitment to the darkness, the bargain was struck that Proserpina would exist for 6 months above ground and 6 months below ground. And we've got to remember her autonomy in that bargain. We have to remember that she was not a prisoner, that she in fact became the queen of the underworld. And her majesty and her beauty and her grandeur was just as present in the darkness as it was in the light. Now, for so many of us that have this relationship with our own personal underworld, there can be so much fear that exists and erupts within us when time goes around, the seasons change, and we find that darkness seeping in to our being. Some of us work with the darkness a lot, and we have to develop strategies in order to reclaim some sense of autonomy in that process. We have to work really hard to find and remember our own beauty that exists in the darkness. There's a lot of light workers at present, and bless them, we thank them for that. There's also a lot of shadow workers that are working just as hard and are just as present for you at this time too, Libra Rising. Now you, in your beautiful emanation of the scales, might be able to reconcile some of this too. It might be in you that you understand the importance of the light and the importance of the shadow. There might be something in you that can see that balance is only struck when we have both of these working. Now, the reason that this mythology came to me, in part because I was struggling or trying to reconcile this moment, but the astrology was speaking to me too. So the asteroid series is currently in the sign Capricorn, where this full moon will be lighting up your fourth house of your home, your ancestry, your roots, and where you came from. The second of two full moons, because I missed the one a month ago. So this is pertinent right now, Libra Rising. Ceres is on the quest for retrieval. Ceres is on the way to making a conjunction with Pluto. On December the 9th, I believe that will happen. The last time that this conjunction between Ceres and Pluto happened was in January of 2020. So you can feel that there's some sort of reckoning. The audience is being held in order to strike the bargain, and it's coming up very soon. In your fourth house of your home, your roots, your ancestry, where you came from, that bargain might feel very sincere at this time. The asteroid Proserpina has just moved away from an exact conjunction with Jupiter in Gemini. And so as this was occurring for me in my search for light in the dark, I realized this. And I was able to work with Proserpina. I was able to reclaim parts of my dark beauty in this moment too. On your birth chart, Libra Rising, Gemini is the 9th house. Your access to faith, your access to your conviction in your spirituality. And so while Jupiter is being incredibly bombastic in that world for you at this time, Proserpina might be bringing some sincerity to that part of you too. It has been a really difficult road for you, my love. The dragon's tail in Libra has been asking you to let go of parts of yourself that perhaps you have been reluctant to do so. If I were you, I'd look to your friendships at this time. I'd look to people that you care about and that you have an inkling care about you too. I'd look to communities. I'd look to your humanitarian spirit at this time. For Venus, your guiding light, is in that house right now, and she's wearing her lion costume. So there's some support there for you if this journey with the darkness, in terms of excavating your family line or your family history, or if there's been aspects of that structure, of that place that you're having to say goodbye to at this time, you can absolutely look to your community for support. This has been an ongoing journey, Libra Rising. It doesn't start and stop in the next week or so. This is an overarching story. And this is perhaps one that we can come back to when the darkness gets very rich. To learn to be able to see in the dark is a powerful, powerful action. It can give yourself a lot of freedom once your eyes have adjusted. So looking at the tarot for this moment, we're looking at the devil for Capricorn. And we know all too well that there's nothing to fear here, but there are questions to ask. And also the Four of Pentacles. So the final degree, 29 degrees of Capricorn, the anaretic degree, as they say in astrology, it's the final lesson. So this moon is illuminating this point in the zodiac. It's a spotlight for Pluto to re-enter in September and then finally leave forever, in our lifetime anyway, in November, December. So what are we highlighting? What have we held on to so tightly that we can finally feel the grip releasing? Now that we know that Proserpina is ever present, maybe not as bold as some of the other astrology, but ever present. The Queen of the Underworld is in your power too. The Queen of the Underworld will be somewhere on your birth chart. It's worth exploring. See how you relate to this archetype, to this unconscious story. It's beautiful work. Proserpina is in exact conjunction with my sun sign, by the way, for those playing at home. Let's get you some tarot. Let's work further with this. Exact conjunction, 4 degrees away. Forgive me, I have to be exact. Another thing that I was learning about Ceres and Proserpina, the asteroids, is that they have a very strange orbit with one another because they're sort of syncopated and they come together for a period of time, which is something like 8 years, where they'll be sort of 20 degrees away and they'll make some conjunctions too. But then they separate for about 70 years, I think. When thinking about the, what is it called? The Strauss, I can't remember, the blokes that gave us the word millennial. That theory, that sort of, pseudoscientific, as, no judgment, but that idea of like the generational emanations, the 80-year cycle of the heroes and the artists and all of that stuff. Ceres and Proserpina, it's not the same, but there's something in there. There's something about, check your birth chart, and I can't give you the years off my head, but there are some folks that walk among us that have Proserpina and Ceres in a very near or exact conjunction, and there are some of us that have them in opposition. So these archetypes, the nurturer, the protector, and the child that finds their own strength through struggle, they both exist within us. Maybe conversations around children, whether you are a parent yourself, or if you have a relationship with your parents, we can embody both in tandem at the same time. And it's just the way that these stories, they hit us, they hit a chord in some way. Yeah. Defensiveness is palpable at present, isn't it? And we've had to learn the rhythm. We've had to sort of practice, condition ourselves to face what's coming right for us. And there has been a lot of magical work that a lot of folks have been doing that I've been so grateful for in reconciling my own perception of the world around me at this current time. No way around it. We're driving into the skid, and I've said this before, but this sort of imbalance of power and this feeling of trepidation and of fear is universal at this time. So I don't want you to ever fear that you're alone in your fear. What I would like you to remember is that you've been doing your own magical work. You've been doing your own conditioning, your own finessing to combat and to reconcile the current moment. You've been doing such great work. The time is coming. The time is coming where we spin the dial. And I'm reminded of Jupiter right now. I'm reminded of this sort of exacerbation in your 9th house of your spiritual understanding, Libra Rising. I'm reminded of your connection to astrology and to the tarot and to philosophy. And I'm reminded of how you're reconfiguring your relationship with the grand house of the gods. If you're anything like me, you spent quite a lot of your life attempting to be an atheist, attempting to be a realist. And that work of coming back to the magic from childhood, it's scary sometimes to fully commit and fully believe in that at this current moment because of our well-heeled and well-versed reluctance to believe in any sort of manipulative force that would control us and would have us repent or submit. Spirituality is complex, and it's for everyone to make their own definition of it. And I think that's the beauty. There's beauty and diversity in every natural world. Diversity is key. And I think it's key for spirituality to whatever gives you comfort and whatever you believe in at this current time, Libra Rising. I fully believe and trust that you're working with the right thing that works for you. Sometimes the exacerbation can leave us in a space where we feel seduced by something. And I will say that there is light and shade in every being. And I think that that's something for us all to reconcile. From my perspective, there has been a lot of prophecy being offered by some spiritually minded folks at this time, which I've decided, love and light, to not engage with because it's not good for my health. So perhaps this is something that you might be thinking about too, as far as looking or searching for meaning at a time that does feel very fraught. There might be some guidance that you've been taking, but then it's made you feel uncomfortable. I would trust that feeling for you, what's good for your body. Your body will tell you what's good and what's not good for you, especially at this time. So you know what the truth is for your life and for yourself. And you know what works and what doesn't. Jupiter's been examining that. And so the best part of being alive in this current moment, this quality of time, is that we double down on our autonomy. We double down on our own spiritual truth and our own spiritual freedom, and we don't do anything or take guidance from anyone that you have that funny feeling about. It's just a mirror. As my favorite astrologer, Chani Nicholas, says, it's just a mirror. We use this tool and these tools to give ourselves radical self-acceptance. There's a beautiful line of therapy called radical acceptance theory, or radical acceptance therapy too, which is great for a lot of people that find it difficult to accept the current moment. It's a great tool for mindfulness. Everyone should go through it. But this is what we kind of use this for too. So prophecies of the worst, or predicting disaster, or predicting violence, I find super unhealthy for myself. And so now I don't participate in that. But that doesn't mean that I put my whole practice, my whole hope, sense of spiritual support, I don't put it all in the bin. I just choose to follow the paths that give me comfort and clarity and opportunity to reflect. Gemini. That's your reading, Libra Rising. I love you very, very much. Thank you very much for being here and for your patience through my little journey. If you are still here with me, just throw a little comment. It doesn't have to be much, but just say hello. I obviously am paranoid about falling out of favor with the algorithm overlords and having my work buried because I haven't been producing enough. So just say hello. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, I'll draw you one in my style like this, and we can make an appointment via Zoom at umaruby.com. If you would like to support my work, you can subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month or put some money in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby. And if you live in Melbourne town, for the next month, on Sundays, I'll be doing live tarot readings at the Nicholas Building, I should say, on Swanston Street at Muses of Mystery. I'll put the link in the description below and you can make an appointment for a live reading via their website. So much love to you, my darling. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. And I'll be with you soon enough and we'll speak about the Leo new moon, and let's constructively discuss how to diversify my work too. There is something about giving 12 verbal horoscopes every new and full moon that might need a workaround for me. So let's keep it an open conversation. I've been trying to think of different ways to strategize how I might continue and, commit to this work, and I just haven't landed on it yet, but let's talk about it. I love you very much. Take care. Hello, Aquarius Rising. Welcome to your reading for the Capricorn full moon, happening super soon on Sunday, the 21st of July at 8:19 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. Hi, how are you? Hi. Sorry I've been away. It's been a month. I got really sick. I got a fever and I dropped my phone on the train and I was in chaos. I was in absolute chaos. And I went on a journey to the underworld. All I could do was take care of my body and to respond to healing and its health. And in that journey downward, I was reminded of my relationship with the underworld. I was reminded of my relationship with re-emergence. I was reminded of my relationship with the darkness. And in my research, because I read when I dissociate. In my research, I have discovered a bit of the astrology, a bit of the mythology that I think is going to be pertinent for me to include in the readings moving forward. Maybe not all the time, but it feels at this current climate with this configuration, specifically Aquarius Rising, that we might really come to rely on Proserpina, the queen of the underworld. Now, in the Greek, she was Persephone, so you might remember that name from stories that you've heard before. The child of Ceres, the goddess of agriculture and the harvest, the one that was abducted by Pluto and dragged to the underworld, so they say. The reason that we're going to sort of journey with this myth is because Pluto in Aquarius is doing its work, and it will continue to do its work for the next 20 years. And so I want to expand upon my definition of what this might mean for us, and I also want to investigate how we can claim some sense of autonomy in our darkness. This full moon in Capricorn is one of two, so I missed out on the first one on the 22nd of June, and then I missed out on the Cancer new moon. But we're here again, back to the Capricorn full moon. It's occurring at 29 degrees of Capricorn, the final degree, the degree that Pluto, that's now in Aquarius at 0 degrees, is going to be moving back to come September. On your birth chart, Aquarius Rising, Capricorn is the 12th house. It's the unconscious reality. It's our inner workings. It's our journey with our dreams. And these critical degrees of 29 and 0 both are pertinent because one consolidates the lesson and one begins the lesson. Now, looking at this astrology and remembering the cycles of the planets, remembering that there is an asteroid called Ceres, there is also one called Proserpina. When Ceres and Pluto last met, it was in Capricorn at the same time that Saturn was co-present and Jupiter too. It was in January of 2020. And so in my own personal journey, but in the astrology for everyone, there's something that is reminding me of January of 2020. There's something that's coming back to close out a cycle and to begin something new. In the story of Ceres and Proserpina, Ceres went on a great quest of retrieval. As the mother, the nurturer, she was furious at Jupiter and Pluto for the abduction because Jupiter gave permission. And she went to the underworld in quest, in search for her daughter to bring her back to Earth. All the while, Proserpina, her daughter, was in the underworld, in the darkness. In that time, Proserpina ate the pomegranate seeds that would bind her to her responsibility as the priestess, the queen of the underworld. And so the bargain was struck that Ceres could have Proserpina back for 6 months of the year, and the remaining 6 months of the year, she would be the queen of the underworld. This dynamic gives us back a sense of autonomy over our own darkness, if we can at all handle it in moments of quiet, dark sorrow, fear, pain, numbness. There's beauty to be found in those moments. And it's not to dwell forever, because Ceres won't have that. But it is rather than to spend the time in agonizing terror, it's to find the beauty, to find the gold in that underworld. I believe that the sensitive folks among us have this to contend with, and it's something that can be exhausting. It's something that can be agonizing to contend with. However, there is such strength to be gleaned. And if we can emanate or embody or remind ourselves that Proserpina, Ceres, Pluto, Jupiter, all of them have some existence in our infrastructure, it's Proserpina, the queen of the underworld, that can guide us through the dark. And this is something that I'm so grateful for. It's something that Jupiter reminded me, because at that Cancer new moon 2 weeks ago, Proserpina and Jupiter were in an exact conjunction in Gemini. They came together and Jupiter expanded and highlighted the topic for me. And this is what I've come up with. January of 2020, there will be another reminder of this in December of 2024. We're coming back to finishing the cycle of retrieval that Ceres encounters with Pluto. We also know that this is going to occur at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So this is very personal. By that time, Ceres will be in Cancer. That time Proserpina will be in Cancer. So there is something that we're moving through about Proserpina and Ceres being apart. Eventually, they will come back into union. But what we've got to remind ourselves is that while apart, we are powerful and we are beautiful. The dark, shadowy aspects of your persona are just as remarkable, just as worthy of love and adoration as your lightness, Aquarius Rising. The light and bright aspects of you we adore, The dark and tender, melancholy aspects of you, we adore too. It's just a matter of finding your own rhythm in that world, finding your feet in the dark, being able to see in the dark, let your eyes adjust. So this full moon is speaking to these topics. It's lighting up your 12th house of your unconscious self. It's also in a pretty close conjunction with Pluto, the lord of the underworld. Jupiter is protecting the queen of the underworld right now. So in Gemini, in your 5th house of your creativity, of your sexuality, your self-expression, there's something about the queen of the night that I'd like for you to embody or to remember that you have it in you. Now the planet Mars has just entered Gemini too, after a combustive outburst of violence in Taurus on the 16th of July. And they've moved into Gemini, and so we'll be forming an exact trine with Pluto. So Mars and Pluto working in synergy between your 1st house and your 5th house, yourself and your pleasure. So perhaps there's some pleasure that you can ascertain or you can find. You can embark on a journey in the underworld to find the pleasure. Sorry that I've been away. You can understand perhaps some of the topics that have been coming up for me during this time. When I look at the tarot and I look at the last wedge, the last decan of Capricorn that this moon is lighting up, we talk to the devil when we speak to Capricorn. We talk to the devil when we speak to your 12th house. And the last decan is the 4 of Pentacles. So what are we hanging on to? What are we gripping on to? One way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, what are we protecting? So I'll leave that up to you. And in this journey, if that's where you're headed or where you've just been, I hope that you've been able to excavate and find the gold again. Venus has just entered your 7th house too. So Venus is wearing her Leo costume. Venus is out of control, gorgeous right now. So maybe there's something sweet happening in your relationships that is aiding. Maybe through honesty in your relationships, you're finding some support and some, again, pleasure in those that are close by, those that you love, your friendships, your lovers. Perhaps there's some encouragement here that feels fertile. Now, for whatever reason, there's 4, but let's see. So I got the 4 of Pentacles again, along with the Queen of Pentacles. And so this series is emanating through the Queen of Pentacles at this time. Ceres is in Capricorn at 11-ish degrees, I think. And so unconsciously, there's a journey here. If we're going to embody Proserpina, the queen of the underworld, we can also embody Ceres, the great protector, the nourisher, the feeder. And so there's something here about taking good care and good food, listening to the body and listening to what it needs and providing that. There's something here about this moon in all of the darkness that I've been discussing. I've got to remember that it's a full moon. There's a light here. Perhaps you can use this moon to guide your way through this journey. I can see that we're sort of stepping away from something that felt really passionate and really vital and really on fire. I think that might have disintegrated in some way, only because something better is coming, and it's a communion that feels like so medicinal's the wrong word, that sounds quite sterile. This feels healing and connected. This feels like it opens up your emotional capacity. This feels like standing in company with someone that is present for you and that perhaps in some way has recognized the Proserpina aspects of your being and encourages the bravery within you to go there. Sometimes Ceres wants to protect and coddle and wrap up in cotton wool and protect and shield from danger. It's the Proserpina aspects of ourselves, Aquarius Rising, that remind Mother, as it were, that we're grown-ups now and that this is an aspect of me, this is a side of me that I'm gaining confidence in. I'm not frightened of the dark, that I know my rhythms and the emanation of my beauty takes on a different colour and a different texture in the dark, but it's just as gorgeous as the springtime too. I wonder if you know much about seasonal affective disorder. Not to pathologize or to diagnose anything, but I have made it my commitment next winter, we're currently in winter here in the Southern Hemisphere, next winter I must be around fire. I need to find practical strategies to hibernate and to remind myself of safety in the winter when the light is less. It has its effect. And so it's about working in the darkness. And a lot of that, for me, has to do with literal fire. I think that's why I smoke cigarettes. It's a bad habit. I'm going to give it up, I promise, soon. Anyhow, that's your reading, Aquarius Rising. I hope it was valuable for you. I love you very much. If you're still here with me, just drop me a comment in the box below. Just let me know that the eagle has landed. And if you'd like me to read your birth chart, I will draw you one. They look like this, and you can make your appointment at umaruby.com. I'll read it to you via Zoom. If you'd like to support my work, you can head to buymeacoffee.com/umaruby and put some money in the tip jar. And if you live in Melbourne town, I will be available for live readings for a month. Come this full moon. On Sundays, I'll be reading at the Nicholas Building in the city at a shop called Muses of Mystery, just for 1 month. So if you'd like to make an appointment to see me face to face, you can do that via their website. I'll put the link in the description below as well. Much love to you, Aquarius Rising. I look forward to seeing you soon, and I'll be with you and we'll talk about this Leo new moon that's coming up. So when thinking about your relationships, there's a night of manifestation that is well deserved for you. So let's take it. Hello, Gemini Rising. Welcome to your reading for the Capricorn full moon happening very soon, this Sunday, the 21st of July at 8:19 p.m. if you're in the Southern Hemisphere with me. Hi, how you doing? It's good to be back. I apologize for how long it's been, Gemini Rising. I've been very sick. At the last full moon, a fever took over my body to the point where it was all that I could do. But, feed the dog and watch telly. I also dropped my phone on the train, and so my livelihood slipped out of my fingers, and I had all sorts of worry and panic running through me. And the physical ailments were a manifestation, I think, of an internal conflict, a very Gemini sort of motivation to internalize and to converse internally. That became too much. I think that to be a human citizen at this time is a challenge for many of us, especially those that are softer skinned. In fact, that's a lie. I think it's challenging for everyone. It's just a matter of if you allow yourself that or not. And so the Gemini-ness of it all, that Jupiterian exacerbation of internal dialogue, reached a critical point where my body was like, okay, I'm pulling the plug on this. That's enough. Sick. Focus on your body. Focus on your physical self. Focus on the realism of your existence, not the mentalism of your existence. And so that's how I've sort of come to reconcile what was occurring for me and reconcile a lot of this unconscious anxiety, very conscious anxiety at times, I might say. But in that time of things feeling like they were rapidly slipping away, and also the structure of my work and my ability to articulate this information, all of this came into a space where I was like, I had lost it. I was completely confused by the purpose of what it is that I've been studying so diligently. And through all of that, I found myself in the underworld once more. I found myself in a place that was very dark, and I found myself in a place that was very recognizable, very familiar, and I was ashamed that that had happened. In that moment, in that break, in that time of urgently needing to redefine my life, my structure, my work, my intent, in that space of being very inches away from pressing the ejector button and throwing it all in the bin, in the way of being so confusing, allowing the symbology to confuse me. In all of that, I found a clearing. And I remembered that the goddess Proserpina, the Greeks called her Persephone, exists within us too. And so rather than the sole lord of the underworld, the king of the underworld, Pluto, rather than that being its solo emanation in ourselves, there is also a goddess that exists in the underworld. And she's beautiful. And she's brilliant. And she's just as powerful as any patriarchal force that might exist that feels like oppression or feels like destruction. That dark space, that underworld space, is foreboding, and it feels like a maze sometimes too, and it feels like a trap. Some of us find it very difficult and worry that we won't be able to get out of that space again. But what do I do when I dissociate? What do we do when we flip out? We read. And so I've been reading a lot of poetry around the mythology of Proserpina. I've been reading a lot of different versions of what she might represent. A lot of different artwork has been created in honor of Proserpina too. And I realize that there's beauty in the darkness. As much as there's beauty in the light, as much as we adore and need the light to live, something happens in the darkness to us, and it doesn't diminish or distinguish our light. It actually helps create it. There's no light without shadow. It would be a void if that was the case. Shadow and darkness are essential for our existence. When we feel overwhelmed by that, that's when it reaches a critical moment. But looking at your birth chart, Gemini Rising, the asteroid Proserpina, the queen of the underworld, formed an exact conjunction with Jupiter at the last Cancer new moon. They're in the same place in the sky, in your first house, your house of the self, your soul's rising intention. Now, if we trace the zodiac and we search out Proserpina's mother, Ceres, we find her in Capricorn. We find her co-present with this full moon that's about to occur. We look over to your 8th house, your house of the underworld. The idle place is what the Hellenistic astrologers used to call it. It's attached to grief and to loss and to sorrow and ecstasy, in an intense, connected way. All of the parts of life that aren't so love and light, all of the parts of life that are just as beautiful as the light, but in a different way. So this full moon in Capricorn, the second of the 2 full moons in Capricorn this year, the first being a month ago, we come back and we have another examination of the 8th house, knowing this time that Proserpina is in your first, that is with you at this time. Now, moving with this mythology of Proserpina being the queen of the underworld, compatriot of Pluto, moving with the astrology, the mythology of Ceres being the enraged mother who was furious at Jupiter for the bargain that was struck that the abduction could take place. It was on Jupiter's say-so that Pluto abducted Proserpina into the underworld. There's a conflict of interests here, but the story is all happening internally and externally all at the same time. You can be the protector, the mother, the one with the fire and anger to seek out and retrieve what was taken from you. You can also be the queen of the underworld, whose eyes have adjusted to the dark, who can look around and see what their kingdom holds for them, which is gold, so much gold. This feels hopefully helpful at this time, Gemini Rising, and hopefully as we move into this clash of the Titans, which will be occurring in August between the major patriarchs of the zodiac, Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Gemini. The reason that I say the clash of the patriarchy is that Saturn in the mythology was the king of the Titans, the father of Jupiter. And there's a painting called Saturn Eating His Son, and it depicts this grotesque scene of this monster, this gargoyle, eating a live human child. It's full on, it's really confronting painting. If you look into the eyes of Saturn, you can see the fear. The fear was a power overthrow. The fear was the kingdom being usurped by the youth. And so they grappled on as hard as they could to maintain control and maintain power. Jupiter was protected from this feast by his mother, and eventually when he came of age, he came back to Saturn and forced a purging, forced a vomiting up of all the gods that had been eaten. And then the Olympian gods were created, and Saturn was castrated and cast asunder. The global stage is teaching us a lot about this, but I wonder what's occurring for you internally. I wonder if there's old fear attached to the way that you're publicly perceived, your career, your talents, your offerings in this world. And I wonder if there's a new guard that is beckoning you to hold footing and to stand up. Jupiter in Gemini is very uncomfortable, so there might be some fits and starts. At this full moon in Capricorn, Mars will have entered the scene too, so our rage, our anger is present in the first house for you, Gemini Rising. However, it's forming a support with Pluto, the harbinger of change. So let's see what happens at this time. Don't look at this full moon as the moment. I'm telling you these stories that are in long form. These are themes that we're going to be working with over the next months. And whenever we need them, I'll be honest with you. And maybe you can look to finding the goddess Proserpina on your birth chart. It's 26, if you're searching for the asteroids. But there's power in the dark, and I want you to remember that as much as there's majesty in the light. It's our job to reconcile them both, but reconciliation doesn't mean elimination of one for the other at all. It means holding both to be true at the same time. As a Gemini, you know how to do that. Let's get you some tarot. Ceres and Pluto formed a conjunction in January of 2020 in Capricorn, funnily enough. And that set off a whole series of unfortunate events for many of us. However, thinking about that specific mythology, there's something that I like about retrieval that we'll be working with and finishing up in December of this year. Ceres and Pluto will come together again, this time at 0 degrees of Aquarius. So we're ending the story that began between these two in January of 2020, and we're starting a new one. So I wonder what that might look like. I think it's got a lot to do with do you remember during the pandemic years, and as much as it was an ongoing process, we were required and we had to maintain a sense of safety in our psyches, but also in our emotional health. We had to invent new systems that we couldn't get emotional comfort physically from other people for a long, protracted period of time. We had to construct new ways to do that, or we had to construct new internal pathways to do that for ourselves. And some of us, myself included, have become stuck in that mode of self-reliance. What I'm looking at here, Gemini, is perhaps as Ceres comes back together with Pluto, this new cycle, this new story that we'll be telling one another about protection and nurturing will include more physical contact. It will include more presence with one another emotionally. Because the last time that Ceres and Pluto came together, we had to rely on ourselves. We had to go on a journey and a quest to find how to emotionally regulate in crisis. And so moving into the next part of our lives together, there's something here about re-teaching ourselves that we can rely on one another for emotional support. Our boundaries are different now. They've changed. It's how we work with this new boundary and how we work with our needs and the needs of others that will make the difference. We have to reteach ourselves emotional intimacy in some capacity. I've been doing a lot of private work on that topic as well. And I'm looking forward to December of this year as we move into this reconnection of Ceres and Pluto, this new bargain that will be struck. And separate to Capricorn, it's now in Aquarius. When I think of Aquarius, I think of our humanity. I think about collective action. So this is what I would love for you too, is to be able to feel safe enough to come together and to work together again with other people. Keep your ideas and your heart and your safety. You can keep those cards close to your chest, but it might be time gently to start opening up and to seeing who else is in your company that you're able to trust on the reciprocity of that emotional care. I love you, Gemini. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your patience. Trust your instinct when it comes to boundaries. Trust your instinct when it comes to knowing when something is not going to work. There's a desire within you, yes, but there's also the reality that your intuition won't fail you. It's just a matter of picking apart what's intuition, which is here, and what's paranoia, which is here, or delusion, which is out there. Take good care. If you are still here with me, Gemini, just throw me a little comment in the box down below. I don't mind what you say. It could just be like a hey babe, it doesn't matter. I have been away for a while, and part of me is paranoid about loss of interest and also the algorithm and all of that nonsense, but I don't know. That's being rewritten every day. Who cares? The message will land for you only if you sincerely feel that it has. So if it has, let me know. If you'd like me to read your birth chart, I'll draw you one. They look like this, and you can make your appointment at umaruby.com. That's my website. If you would like to support my work, you can put some money in the tip jar at buymeacoffee.com/umaruby, or you could subscribe for 10 Australian dollars a month. If you would like a live reading, face-to-face, in the flesh with me, I will be offering live readings for the next month, starting at the Capricorn full moon every Sunday. I'll be reading at the Nicholas building, in the city at a shop called Muses of Mystery. I'll put their link in the description below as well. You can make a live appointment with me through the Muses. It will be for 1 month, so let's see how we go. Much love to you, Gemini Rising, and I will be with you very soon. We'll talk about the Leo new moon and other things that come to mind. The camera's back in action, and I'm a blabbermouth, it seems, so there's no stopping me. Although I said that last time. I love you. Bye.